Preparing to go live to Facebook.
We just did Clapback, souls to the polls.
You have a notification yet?
What is that, the link? Sorry, gentlemen, give us a couple minutes with Facebook is giving us a headache at the moment. do that. They do that to me sometimes too, and I don't play with it and fidget around with it. What we can do is upload the video later, right?
Yeah.
We can save it and upload.
Totally record it.
So let's just do that.
Do they do this to you sometimes?
Yeah, because Facebook gets real cute.
Gotcha.
With me anyway, my account. All right, gentlemen, so what we're going to All right, gentlemen, so what we're going to do, Facebook is acting slow, so we're just going to record. We're going to upload it at a later time when it's not acting up, and we're just going to go. We're going to start the show and just run through it. We'll upload the Facebook to Facebook, and I will get you each the file so you can upload it as well.
All right. Here we go.
This is our engineer, Rock.
The views and comments of the Justice Clapback are not of this radio station or its management or affiliates. They are solely the express views of the Justice Clapback and its host and guest. Thank you. And now it's time for the Justice Clapback. You are now tuned into the Justice Clapback with your host, Reverend Kristen John Foy. Giving you time to get your watch party started. Giving you time to get tuned in. We do this every Sunday. Without further ado, I introduce to you the Reverend Kristen John Foy.
Praise the Lord, praise the Lord, praise the Lord. What's happening, family? It's good to be with you all another Sunday morning here on the Justice Clapback. We got a lot to talk about. We've had a very busy week, a lot going on. We are now literally 2 days from Election Day. Election Day is the day after tomorrow. It is not the beginning of the election, it is the end of the election. Millions, tens of millions of people have voted early across the nation, shattering records for early voting, shattering records for amount of time folks are waiting in line, some places up to 10 hours to vote. Almost 80 million people have voted early. I believe the number is 77 to be exact, have voted early. We've got tens of millions of mail-in votes, tens of millions of in-person votes. We are on the move as a nation. Want to talk today about the importance of getting souls to the polls. You know, this is Sunday, Soul to the Poll Day. In your state, it is likely that this is the last day of early voting. Some states still have early voting happening tomorrow. But here in New York and many states around the nation, today is the last day to cast your vote early. It's important to do it. It's important to make sure that you do yourself some justice and make sure your vote is both cast and counted. We've been joined today by a host of politically astute and active men of God who are on the front lines in both prophetic and social justice ministry. They have a very rich and robust resume. They go deep into the community, deep into the work. And I'm not going to belabor the point. I want to have us all welcome our guest. First guest is a personal mentor of mine. He is an elder statesman of sort in politics and in ministry in New York and across the nation, with a stellar record and reputation for political organizing, strategy, managing campaigns. He is the chairman of the board of the Eagle Academy and former president of 100 Black Men. And he's a political strategist and consultant. He's the chairman of the board of advisors for Harlem Hospital. He's a minister at Abyssinian Baptist Church. He just is a jack of all trades, and he's a good friend. He is none other than the Reverend Jacques DeGraff, who is with us. We've been joined by a good brother, friend, colleague in the struggle. He is the president of the Ark of Justice in Kansas City, Missouri. He is the preeminent voice of a generation of political activists. And he is on the move even as we speak. I believe he's driving to go pick up his fiancée for a nice dinner, but he's with us tonight. We're going to be talking about how to move our young people into the polls. And last but not least, Minister Fred Whitlow from No More Dirty Radio out of Huntsville, Alabama, is with us as well. He is also on the front lines dealing with these issues that are affecting our community, not just with respect to the elections, but with respect to the culture as a whole. I'm honored that you all have joined us, and let's give our guest a justice clap. Now we can get into the clap back. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. Thank you for lending yourself to the movement for justice. Thank you for your sacrifice and your service, and for your continued commitment to empowering the most marginal among us. I want to start the conversation with Reverend DeGraff. Reverend, as I stated in my intro, you've been on the front lines for a long time. Political activity, political organizing is not new for you. In fact, it is second nature to you. You have managed historic campaigns. You have been on the front lines of progressive policy change in New York and around the country. And you have dedicated your skills and your service, not just to politics, but also education and healthcare and many of the other issues that are prevailing in our community. Thank you for joining us. So where do you see us as a community with respect to this election? Are you feeling the energy? Are you seeing what you need to see as both a strategist and as a community leader out of our communities across the nation with respect to this election? Are we doing what we need to be doing right now?
Well, first, my brother, and I just want to say, you've come a mighty long way, and you make us proud every step of the way. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be here with you this evening. My mentor, Reverend Wyatt T. Walker, would get up and pop me upside my head if I did not say, it's not Abyssinian, it's Canaan Baptist Church.
I'm sorry, did I say Abyssinian? Oh, no. God forgive me. Yes, sir.
But the question that you raised is the central question of the day. In New York, everybody in each of our locations can talk about the lines at the polls, but there's another set of lines that I think compel us all, and that's in the 21st century, in the richest country in the history of the planet, there are food lines. There are food lines across America. There are people on walkers on food lines. There are people in Mercedes on food lines. There's something that has fundamentally happened in our communities that has changed the whole dynamic. It wasn't so long ago in my memory when one presidential candidate turned to the other and then looked at the camera and said, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago, as the litmus test. This is an election where there are no undecideds. No matter what they say, everyone is decided. And so my 92-year-old aunt showed up at the polls this week and got a standing ovation when she went in and indicated her age. First-time voters are coming out. And yet much is being revealed in this pandemic season, right? A Hall of Fame multi-millionaire basketball player named Shaquille O'Neal, 48 years old, said, this is the first time I've ever voted, as if he was proud of it. And it made me wonder, is there a concussion protocol in basketball? Because to be proud of that is to undo or disrespect the work of all the people on this call and in this movement. People shed their blood so that we would have the right to vote. And unfortunately, it has taken bloodshed, death, and turmoil to get us to this point. But the one thing that we can report to our host is that we are locked and loaded. We're focused. People are ready. They don't need, all they need to do is know when. They'll find the where. And that's why we are organizing men across the city of New York to go over to our neighbors in Pennsylvania and stand tall in Philadelphia, because years ago in New York, Brother Fred, that in New York, when Giuliani was running for mayor, they sent armed correction officers into Black communities to intimidate our voters. Governor Pataki did the same thing. We're not having that this year. When they talk about voter suppression and voter intimidation, they act like that's a normal part of the new status quo, just like Klansmen marching without hoods. But Black men are standing up. And so we're going to Philadelphia to assure the brothers and sisters in those communities that men are standing up. There's been a lot of talk about the gender gap between Black men and Black women. It's an overrated, hyped discussion intended to divide us, but we won't be distracted. 25 years ago, I was privileged to be an organizer for the Million Man March, and we set a new paradigm. Well, we're holding still high the bloodstained banner, and in 2020, we've got to tell Pharaoh he's got to go. And so we are taking busloads of men down to Philadelphia. We're going to stand watch, stand guard over our brothers and sisters. We'll be on the lines with them, and we'll be at the point of conflict. So tell those make-believe militia that real men are coming to stand up on a real cause.
Amen. Go right there. We have we got a serious cause with respect to this election that we have not seen before. And I think that new cause, Reverend Hayes, is right in line with what Reverend DeGraff is describing now. That new cause is, how do we as men arise to this occasion, not just as a voter, but as a man, as a father, as a husband, as a son, as a productive member of society, as a productive member of our communities? How do we as men arise to this moment, seeing the very ugly and vitriolic threats that we are facing as voters and as a community from a hostile and potentially violent opposition that does not want to see us vote. How are we to arise to this moment in this occasion? Are we doing it, and what do we need to do in this moment?
And I'm gonna take words from the opposition, and I'm just gonna say, stand by, stand down. And it's time for us to stand up now. We have to, especially as African American males, be the leading force. It's just like, we're all pastors and we all have been around the church world forever. Women always fill the churches, and not only have women always filled the churches, but women have always filled the voting poll booths also. And I think now with us being the new most endangered species in America, that our black men are now taking that responsibility of leading their families and leading their communities to the polls. We just have to keep that energy up. I'm proud of my generation. I'm the youngest on the call, being 29, and as a young pastor in my city, I encourage our time. And if we do not capitalize, we might not get it next time. And so we have to take this moment not lightly, but take this moment as life or death, because this is probably the most.
I think we lost our brother there. Minister Fred Whitlow.
Yes.
Can you chime in and pick up where the brother Reverend Hayes left off? Can you feel where he was coming from?
Yeah, most deaf. The times we're in now, it's really a call. It's a mandate. Well, I'm in Huntsville, Alabama. I'm in the state of Alabama, which is a seat of segregation and racism, as we know historically, and it's refreshing. And like my brother said, initially, when you look at a lot of the movements, it was really African American women that, for whatever reason, they were treated bad, locked up, told certain things, and it was because of these things that it's time, that we as black men, as strong black men, to really take the helm. And when we do that, what I found, even here in Huntsville, working with other organizations and other men in other organizations, is when you see black men, strong black men, step into the forefront and heading out, you see the women, they have this extra energy, this vitality, and then you can use it. You have that blend of the creativity, the nurturing that the woman brings outside the protest itself, with the strength, the masculinity, the forthrightness, and all of that. And it's like another whole level. We're doing some amazing things here. We had a situation with, we had a Confederate statue that's was at our Madison Court County. We started June 1st. Then June 3rd, they shot us with rubber bullets. You name it, it was ridiculous. I mean, we had our councilman, the youngest African-American councilman was there with us, cats from the club, you name it, the community, public housing where I work. And I mean, you're talking about 4,000 people. But when the brothers stood up and didn't move, man, it changed the trajectory of the whole movement. And from June the 1st to the Friday, this Friday passed, it was amazing to see that eventually they had to concede and move that monument to a Confederate cemetery. Boy, you talking about a man, teardrop, bro. It was history. In Alabama, those things do not happen. We had Black Lives Matter, young brothers, strong brothers. We had our allies also working, CJCE, Lift Our Vote. I mean, it was amazing. And when you see black men stepping up and saying, we're going to be the front, oh, there's nothing that can't be accomplished. I mean, when you have Adam standing at the helm and you got Eve on the side, and and you got John and James and Peter. This is another whole level, Doc. We about to take over. They were scared to death. They thought they could weed us out. It ain't happening.
So do you think you can take that same energy and that same enthusiasm that you harnessed and channeled to have that Confederate monument removed and move our people to the polls, or is that a different kind of energy that you're it's
still there, Doc. When I tell you, we have the HBCUs, Oakwood University, Drake, we have Alabama A&M. Listen, it's so serious, Doc, that we have up until the 29th, we had tables set right there at the courthouse, right next to the monument. And every time they would come up, we would have the students from A&M, black and brown, just handling business. We had 50,000 people hit the courthouse in a matter of weeks. So a couple days out now, we're going to turn this thing all the way up. And I'm talking about everybody. So yes, sir.
Give me a hand clap on that right there. Those are some big numbers.
Yeah.
So Reverend DeGraff is taking scores, if not 100 or more, black men into Pennsylvania to stand up to protect the polls. We've got black men in Alabama standing up, demanding that Confederate monuments be removed. And we've got young black men like Reverend Timothy Hayes on the front lines in Kansas City. Do we have Timothy back, Tim? Reverend Hayes?
Yes, I'm back. Yes, sir, I'm back. I think I was driving through a dead area there.
Go ahead, pick up where you left off, brother.
I was leaving off on the statement. Is that it's life and death election for us, and I don't think we have ever been in one as such. When it was time to vote for Obama, it wasn't life or death. Even though we were coming out of a bad time, we wasn't coming out of a time as such as this. And we especially us black men in America, we must treat this as if our life is on trial, because our life is literally on trial with the social justice movement that's going on in the world, with the Supreme Court making their decision, and the oppressor making his decision to nominate who he nominated. Our life is literally on trial. I'm not going to vote for myself, but I'm voting for my kids. I'm voting for the future. I'm voting for every felon that can vote. I'm voting for every black man that is behind bars that can vote. And we have to do it. And so I encourage those who are out there that have not had the energy or the drive or the enthusiasm to vote. If you can do it for you, do it for those that are in the graveyard. Do it for those that we have lost to police brutality. Do it for those that are in the jail cells. Do it for those that wish they could. And not only do it for those that can do it, but do it for those that couldn't do it. They got beat on slave ships and whipped and tangled in a mess that they really didn't ask for. And so I'm excited for my city. I'm excited for the energy. I see, as I heard earlier, new voters coming out every day, mail-in votes every day. I pray that we did a good job on the census, and I'm praying that we do a better job at the polls.
All right, I'm just going to throw this out there because we are seeing, I think, an unprecedented attack on our democracy from both the inside and the outside. We see foreign hostile nations who are trying to directly influence the outcome of this election. And it's curious that the way that they seem to be doing it, where they are finding the most resonance, is in the Black community. They are promoting and promulgating lies among Black voters online. They are targeting young Black males in particular with distortions of the Biden record. They are targeting black males in particular with this message that somehow Senator Kamala Harris is a cop that's going to continue to weigh down heavy. She's going to continue to keep her foot on the criminal justice throttle. You had Joe Biden, who is the author of the 94 crime bill, and he's not going to do nothing different. I'm just throwing it out there for anybody to pick it up. Are you encountering this kind of a thread of thought among young black voters? I know I'm seeing a lot of it and confronting a lot of it online and in social media. Are you guys seeing it on the street? And if you are, what are you doing? How do we combat this message, which is clearly a concerted campaign to influence the behavior of young black male voters and turn them against the Democratic Party?
I can chime in on there. That is definitely a attack that's happening here in Alabama. What we did a few different things that were very, very helpful strategically. One of those things was we went to the people in the communities. We went to the neighborhoods where the police, they always messing with us, or they always propaganding a lot of foolishness. And that's not all law enforcement, but some. And what we did was we began to do real G pop-up voter registration and voter information sessions. So, like for instance, we would get, there's a gentleman, his name is Brother Maurice Russell, and he has like the best Southern restaurant in Huntsville, right? He called it G's Country Kitchen. And what he did was we threw a voters registration there. You saw we had about, 300, 400, 500 cars sitting on 22s, 26s, you name it, riding in, man. Let me tell you something. He had a live DJ. Yo, mad crazy. And so what we did was we had our representation from the state there, and we had a slew of different information and brothers that were from the neighborhood that had never had a chance to vote, got a chance to restore their votes. When that happened, they saw that they can actually be a productive citizen in this election, and they can be engaged. Let me tell you something. They got on the horn, they hit the cell, they were tweeting, they were doing. It went from like maybe 100 people, started stacking 200, 300. We had to do direction to try and get cats in there. They were rolling up, sitting on the side, hydraulics, you name it. And cats was like, dude,
for a vote.
You know what I'm saying?
For a voter event. For a voter event.
Let me tell you something. We had car and bike code review. Yes, sir. Yes,
it wasn't a car show. It wasn't a concert. It wasn't a cipher. It was a voting event. I just want to be clear, because they, the media would have us, the only way black men gather is if there's music or some kind of vice involved. But here, instead of a vice, we're talking about a vote.
Brother Foy, I think it's important that we control our message.
Correct.
And messaging is got to be intentional. So even tonight, to Brother Hayes' point, when we talk about, in effect, there are people who say, what's in it for me? And so I'm encouraged by what I heard in the heart of the Confederacy, what Brother Whitlow and his compatriots have done, because I know what fear looks like. And I know what reactionaries look like. But what the message that we use, and I'm at the point where, I was involved in the creation of the mail registration, on-site voter registration back in the day with Carl McCall. And so now I'm concerned with getting out the vote, and we leave it to our younger brothers to register new folk. But we've got to get folk who have been registered, but they sometimes come out. And when we identified going to Philadelphia, it was months ago. And it's nearly providential that this week, another young black man. So when people talk about young, another young black man was shot and killed in Trump's America. His mother called for an ambulance, and now they shot her boy in front of his mother. And now she has to plan for a funeral.
You're talking about
that
Walter
doesn't motivate grandparents and young people. And he's the latest young person who's been killed in Trump's America. And I think we as black men need to tell that story unabashedly, because people are trying to divide us. Even you hear a lot about black girl magic and the sisters are the backbone of it. Well, black men have been there at 90%, and have been turning out too. And do right, stand up black men don't get enough credit. And so we have to continue to tell the story. And I like the approach that you got to go meet people where they are. We've been talking in barbershops. We've been talking in senior citizen centers. We've been talking about on bar stools and street corners and in classrooms, because there is a cynicism in some of our campuses about voting. But this time it's an all hands on deck moment. And I tell the story about you, Kristen, that when you were a younger man, that at the biggest black event in New York City, the West Indian Day Parade, the New York City police officers arrested and acted inappropriately, to say it modestly, on a person who worked for an elected official, and they knew he worked for an elected official. So now he put that. Some people would have gone bitter, some people would have quit, but Kirsten Foy turned his anger and his distress into action. And that's what we have to use as real life examples of what people are doing. To head a national movement like the Arc of Justice, that didn't just happen. And we've got to see, when we empower ourselves, that black men are ready, willing, and able. And then we've got to do one more thing. We got to stop the war on each other. That I'm this age, or I have this lifestyle, or I live in this area, and so if I'm not connected to anybody, we're all in this together. When the police rolled up on Floyd or Breonna or this young man Wallace in Philadelphia, they didn't ask whether you're a member of the 100 Black Men or the Masons, or you just came from the club. They just saw your black skin. And we got to keep it fundamental, Kirsten, because I think there is, at least for this moment, an unprecedented concentration and focus that people are all hands on deck.
I agree.
Walter Wallace Jr. was the brother's name that was gunned down while having an emotional episode. And I don't know how many of our listeners have actually seen this video. It's a graphic video, but it is clearly a video of a young man that is having an emotionally disturbed episode. His mother is right there with him physically. The community is out. The young man is not an immediate threat to these officers. They are at a safe distance from him. They claim he had a knife in his possession. They are a safe distance from him. Instead of calling for medical backup, instead of calling for additional support to come in, instead of giving this young brother time, giving his mother time to deal with this situation, they decided they were tired of it, and they gunned him down and they killed him in what has been rightly described by Reverend DeGraff as Trump America. But you also raised another point about the war we have on ourselves. And I know for a fact that Minister Whitlow and Reverend Hayes, Reverend DeGraff, myself, we all are dealing with this issue of violence. And I know we're talking about the vote, the election, but as Black men, we need to take this opportunity to also deal with that issue, the issue of violence that young Black men are perpetrating against one another. There have been more Black men who were killed at the hands of other Black men than have been killed at the hands of the Klan. And so that is a reckoning that we have to have among ourselves. Don't you agree, Reverend Hayes?
Yes, I definitely agree on that topic. I'm so happy that you called me, because I've been fighting with the mute button so I can jump first on this. That is a question that I am asked
Jeopardy.
often. That is a question that I'm Jeopardy. Yeah, that's a question that I'm asked more often than any other question when it comes to fighting the social justice fight, when it comes to voting, when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement, is what about Black people that are killing Black people? And I had a hard conversation just last night with my grandparents, who are both well into their 70s. And I was explaining to them that we are kind of stacked against each other, and it's not that blacks are killing blacks just because, but as Reverend said earlier, this year alone, I have held food drives, and we have probably fed tens of thousands of families because there is a need in our community for food. With the virtual learning, we don't understand how many kids are missing lunch and breakfast at school, and that is going to that they're not eating. I literally was doing an interview before I got on with you guys, and a guy walked up to me who runs a group home, and we haven't seen each other in maybe 15 years. And he walked up to me and he's like, "Hey, I need you." And I'm like, "You don't need me. What's going on?" And he was telling me about his kids and the young teenagers in this group home and how they struggle with coming to the home, having everything that they need at the group home. But when they do go visit their parents and they do go visit their mothers, their brothers and sisters that are left behind, are struggling to, just find breakfast and lunch and dinner and things along those lines. And so I'm praying and I'm hoping that we can take this energy of Black Lives Matter. We can take this energy of souls to the polls, and then we can also say, we won this war. Now let's go win the race war between ourselves. It's just dangerous, and we have to start at the top, because as I was explaining to my grandparents, is that blacks are killing blacks, but blacks don't make guns.
Right.
Blacks are killing blacks. Blacks don't make drugs. And the things that are causing us the violence and the things that are causing us the trouble is because simply the people in power are not doing anything about it, because they are profiting off our pain. They are profiting off us killing each other. And I was telling my grandmother and them last night, I said, if we stop killing each other, and if police really were to do their jobs the correct way, and we were really to stop crime, do you understand that the prison system will go bankrupt overnight? The court system will go bankrupt overnight. Lawyers will be out of job. Court clerks will be out of job. Probation officers will be out of jobs. And judges will be out of job. And so it's at this point where we are not realizing, but we are just a tool that they're using to pad their pockets. It's cheaper to send a brother to college than it is to send him to the penitentiary, but there's more black brothers in the penitentiary than it is in college, because they can profit off of our pain. They can profit off of us killing each other. And so we have to inform and educate and allow our brothers to know that there are more options. And speaking with that brother earlier, he just really changed my life, because he was telling me just stories of how, these kids, he tried to warn and tell them what happens if you make this decision. And he had a 17-year-old kid, literally 17-year-old, get 28 years for armed robbery in a hick town. Went to a small town, of course, a white town, performed a robbery, and he asked him why he did it. And he said, because when I went to visit my mother, she told me that they have not ate, and I had to feed my family. And so we got to start at the top, and there's enough vacant homes, there's enough food getting thrown out at restaurants and going bad in stores where it shouldn't be a problem with taking care of our community, but the struggle is so real. And especially me, and I keep saying this not to call you guys old. I pray
did it a couple times already,
I pray that I live to get to you guys' age. But as a young brother that's out here fighting this fight, that is going to be the fight that I have to fight for the rest of my life. You guys will live to see us beat the racism, and you guys are living proof. You will see that in your lifetime. My fight is going to be, now racism is between black men and black men. How do I keep them from going at each other? How can I get them to see the value in each other? And it's a fight that I plan to fight till I die, because we're gonna win this the fight against the Klan. We're going to win this, and you guys will see that victory. And we're all on this call and all viewing in today, because we're living proof that that is going to happen. But it's going to be my fight after that moment to teach my brother how to put the gun down and hug and love. And it's dangerous. I live in Kansas City. We have had more murders this year than we have had any year, and the year's not even over with yet. 85% of them are black on black crime. And if you ask them why, 50 to 60% can't even tell you the reason why it happened. They can't even tell you why they were mad, why they got into it. They just have guns, and at 12, 13 years old, they've been carrying guns. They have been trained to carry guns, and they're just shooting with their eyes closed.
Reverend DeGraff, I've been trying to figure out how we deal with this gun thing. It's a two-pronged problem. First is the availability. We've reached our saturation point in this country, right? We've got at least one gun for every man, woman, and child by conservative estimates. That's 330 million guns in this country. We are the most heavily armed nation in the world. We have the culture, the majority culture and the subculture, but the culture, American culture, is riddled and inundated with images and history of violence and bloodshed. In fact, this nation was born in the cauldron of bloodshed and violence, and we, as a subculture within that, are targeted as a community with violent images, the media, black movies, and and you can't turn on the news without seeing a black man being accused of some crime somewhere, some violent crime somewhere, some drug-related crime somewhere. But the other piece of it, I think, which really gets to the core of it, the violence on the street is not the only violence that we're seeing. The violence on the street is violence that is born out of economic violence.
Right, correct.
And budgetary violence. Reverend DeGraff, can you speak to that? I mean, are we on the right track when we talk about the economic violence being connected with the violence that we see that is playing out in our communities every day?
Yeah, and in order to do that, we've got to pull the lens back for a minute and recognize that we've seen this movie before. Brother Hayes is recently arrived on the scene for what I'm about to say. But during the crack epidemic, which is another epidemic that we face, during crack epidemic, we had 4 times the amount of murders in New York City than we have right now. There's an uptick, but when crack was ripe or prevalent, churches on Wednesday nights, you had to escort grandmothers to the bus stop. People came out and found their cars broken into or their homes broken into. People were being shot left and right for no discernible reason. So we've been here in some sense before, and I'll tell you who stopped it. Black men. When it came back with the Million Man March, and the police took all the credit, and these draconian laws took the credit, but black men went into neighborhoods and mentored young people and formed the sports league. The Eagle Academy that Reverend Kristen Foy has referenced came out directly from the Million Man March. And black men said, we looked at our schools, we saw boys standing on the corner with their pants hanging below their behinds and said, we can do better than that. And in order to do better than that, you can't just preach at people. You gotta be there. And so we formed a school called the Eagle Academy. And the idea was that we needed to give them some new models. The models could not only be, everybody cannot be in the NBA or a rapper. Right. They needed to see some real life heroes. Right. And so we devoted ourselves and we created a network of schools where in the toughest zip codes in New York City and in Newark. How does that relate to economics? Well, people cling to hope when they can see hope. Then not just hear about it, they need to see it, as Brother Whitlow said. And so what we did was we created mentor programs and internships, and we devoted time to our young people. We got from behind our desk and our comfort zone, because a lot of our men, they could write out a check for a scholarship or for the gala, but you needed to be there. And so unless and until we're prepared to go into the barbershops, go into the clubs, meet folk on the corner. But most importantly, at some point, people look at you and say, what you got? How committed are you to this endeavor? And it takes some adjustment. It takes some patience. It takes some love. Okay, and unless we're prepared to do it, legislation won't do it. The Democrats won't do it. The media will not do it. Real men need to give real time and model. And the other thing is this, it's implicit in what Brother Hayes was saying, and that is we've got to hold people accountable when they fall short of the mark, when they don't keep their promise, when they don't deliver, or when they betray us. And we've been betrayed by some of our own electeds, got downtown, and then that's where they belonged, and then they did things to perpetuate their stay downtown and forget the people who sent them there. So we've also fallen into a false thing. We need the police in our communities. The only question is, how come the police, and then I said this to the commissioner, I said, we keep hearing about the bad apples. There's a few bad apples, and we got to understand. I said, how come the bad apples and the good apples function on Park Avenue, but when they get to 125th Street, the bad apples can act out?
Right.
How is it, right? We've got to have some mechanisms to hold folk accountable. And in order to do that, in addition to voting, that means you got to go to some meetings. You got to go to some community meetings. You got to go to some town halls, and we got to make ourselves known. What do we say when we want to get rid of somebody? Put it in a letter.
Right.
And Negroes disappear.
Right.
Put it in a letter. Come to the meeting. Okay. If you're serious, okay, someone of you can put it in a letter. Okay. We are beset by, you know what I mean. No, I don't know what you mean.
Right.
Because when I go down to represent you, I got to have something to leave behind. And I'm not making fun of our own people. I'm suggesting, though, that we need to look at things in the light of day. And the path, Brother Foy, is this. When we start to own, there's a movement to raise the minimum wage to $15. And for people who make minimum wage and get less than minimum wage, that's an important, but the more important issue, in my view, is to own the businesses that create the jobs. And we'll create our wealth in our communities and create the job. And when you have jobs and wealth in your community, then domestic violence goes down. Gang violence goes down. When people see that they have real options and dreams, and everybody doesn't have to go to college, isn't going to college, but we can teach somebody a trade. We can teach a person to earn a living. And when they do that, then they're less apt to fly off the handle because I don't like the way you looked at me, or you're wearing the wrong color on the wrong block. Right. And make a mistake like the young man he described, who's 17 years old, and 28 years from now, if he makes it, he's lost his life. Right. For what? And that's on us to model and be engaged with these young men.
No
Can
question.
I chime in?
No question
Can I
about
chime
it.
in on that?
Minister Fred.
Yeah. So I want to just flow with what everybody's going. Here's a few things that we've done, and one is just what you said, Pastor, is we are holding our leaders accountable. We just had an election just recently, and we had a brother, looked like you and I, who'd been sitting in the seat a long time, hadn't done what he should have done. Then there was another brother that came along who said, I want to run, and ran, and we voted him, the gentleman that's been sitting there in 3 terms, out. Out. Out.
What you talking about?
And we were like, these are the things that matter to us. And why is it in our neighborhoods the roads are not done? Why is it in our neighborhoods you going these roundabouts? Well, okay, no problem. We're going to vote you out. So I think, like you said, that is one of the things. And what was amazing about it was we had the street, the clubs, we had the middle class, we had our allies that didn't look like us but believed in fairness. And literally, we got out and hit door to door with door hangers, and hit that district, which was the largest district when you look at the whole total Madison County, and literally beat him by the people, because the power of the people is greater than all that other foolishness. And that's what I've learned. 2, the other thing we did was which you were talking about, I think everyone's talking about, is the economic component. And what was successful about us when doing what we're doing is, I was talking to some of the brothers in the neighborhood and a few of my homies, and we did this thing called buy black, buy brown, buy back. So every people we deal with, every business we dealt with since June 1st, buy black, buy brown, buy back. So we're working with a network of individuals that are black and brown to buy properties that are dilapidated. We're looking at the home, the cats is out there banging and slanging. We said, this is what you do. You baptize your money and do something different. So we started the car club shows and we started doing the voting. And then we said, listen, when you hear no weed.
Baptize your money. That's a spiritual allegory to washing the money. That's a spiritual.
That is. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Well, washing it. And when they began to try it, they saw that, this might be something different. And then we began to celebrate them making wise choices while still pushing the vote, while pushing the restore your connection. And then we had the brotherhood and the mentoring. And then we had the different agencies that can be there while we still had all of the elements that they were used to. And then the third thing I'll say, the other thing that was very helpful dealing with the young brothers is we engaged them in conversation that was important to them. So the conversation of a 40 and a 50-year-old, that conversation is important, but not as important as a young brother that dropped out of school at 18. So now we begin to do food drives at every event and had the church to be the conduit for the food bank while we were doing that. So you had cats sitting on 26, then you had the food bank, then you had, voters. I mean, like we was turned straight up. It was a straight party every time. And I'm talking about on church ground. We did the club would lift our vote. Is a young lady. She's like the Angela Davis of the neighborhood from North Huntsville, man. You see what I'm saying? And so we were able to bring that bridge and get it done.